Collaborations, September through December, 1893. Marco arrives at Mr. Barris's London office only a few minutes before his scheduled appointment, surprised to find the normally well-ordered space a near bedlam, full of half-packed crates and stacks of boxes. The desk is nowhere to be seen, buried beneath the chaos. "Is it that late already?" Mr. Barris asks when Marco knocks on the open door, unable to step inside due to a lack of available floor. "I should have left the clock out. It's in one of those crates." He waves at a line of large wooden crates along the wall, though if one of them is ticking, it is impossible to tell. "And I meant to clear a path as well," he adds, pushing boxes aside and picking up piles of rolled blueprints. "Sorry to intrude," Marco says. "I wanted to speak with you before you left the city. I would have waited until you were settled again, but I thought it best to discuss the matter in person." "Of course," Mr. Barris says. "I wanted to give you the spare copies of the circus plans. They are around here somewhere." He sifts through the pile of blueprints, checking labels and dates. The office door closes quietly, untouched. "May I ask you a question, Mr. Barris?" Marco inquires. "Certainly," Mr. Barris says, still sorting through rolls of paper. "How much do you know?" Mr. Barris puts down the blueprint in his hand and turns, pushing his spectacles up on the bridge of his nose to better regard Marco's expression. "How much do I know about what?" he asks after the pause has gone on too long. "How much has Miss Bowen told you?" Marco asks in response. Mr. Barris looks at him curiously for a moment before he speaks. "You're her opponent," he says, a smile spreading across his face when Marco nods. "I never would have guessed." "She told you about the competition," Marco says. "Only in the most basic of terms," Mr. Barris says. "She came to me several years ago and asked what I might say if she were to tell me that everything she does is real. I told her that I would have to take her at her word or think her a liar, and I would never dream such a lovely lady to be a liar. And then she asked what I might design if I did not have such constraints as gravity to concern myself with. That was the beginning of the carousel, but I imagine you knew that already." "I assumed as much," Marco says, "though I was not certain to what degree you were involved. I am in the position to be quite useful as I see it. I believe stage magicians employ engineers to make their tricks appear to be something they are not. In this case, I provided the opposite service, helping actual magic appear to be clever construction. Miss Bowen refers to it as grounding, making the unbelievable believable." "Did she have anything to do with the Stargazer?" Marco asks. "No, the Stargazer is purely mechanical," Mr. Barris says. "I can show you the structural plans if I can locate them in this mess. It was inspired by a trip to the Columbian Exposition in Chicago earlier this year. Miss Bowen insisted there was no way to improve it, though I think she may have something to do with keeping it running properly." "You are a magician in your own right, sir," Marco says. "Perhaps we simply do similar things in different ways," Mr. Barris says. "I had thought, knowing Miss Bowen had an opponent lurking somewhere, that whomever you might be, you were not in need of any assistance. The paper animals are astonishing, for example." "Thank you," Marco says. "I have improvised quite a bit trying to come up with tents that did not require blueprints." "Is that why you're here?" Mr. Barris asks. "For something of the blueprint variety?" "Primarily, I wanted to be certain about your awareness of the game," Marco says. "I could make you forget this entire conversation, you know." "Oh, there's no need for such precaution," Mr. Barris says with a vehement shake of his head. "I assure you, I am capable of remaining neutral. I am not fond of taking sides. I will assist either you or Miss Bowen as much or as little as you would each prefer, and I shall reveal nothing to the other that you or she tell me in confidence. I will not say a word to anyone else about the matter. You can trust me." Marco writes a toppling pile of boxes while he considers the matter. "All right," he says, "though I must admit, Mr. Barris, I'm surprised at how accepting you are of all of this." Mr. Barris chuckles in response. I admit that of the lot of us, I seem the least likely, he says. The world is a more interesting place than I had ever imagined when I came to that first midnight dinner. Is that because Miss Bowen can animate a solid wooden creature on a carousel, or because you can manipulate my memory? Or because the circus itself pushed the boundaries of what I dreamed was possible, even before I entertained the thought of actual magic? I cannot say, but I would not trade it for anything. And you will keep my identity from Miss Bowen? I shall not tell her, Mr. Barris says. You have my word. In that case, Marco says, I would appreciate your assistance with something. When the letter arrives, Mr. Barris fears for a moment that Miss Bowen will be upset with the turn of events, or inquire as to who her opponent is, as she will have easily figured out that he is now aware of that fact himself. But when he opens the envelope, the enclosed note reads only, May I make additions to it? He writes back to inform her that it has been specifically designed to be manipulated by either side, so she may add whatever she wishes. Celia walks through a hallway full of snow. Sparkling flakes of it catching in her hair and clinging to the hem of her gown. She holds out her hand, smiling as the crystals dissolve over her skin. The hall is lined with doors, and she chooses the one at the very end, trailing a melting breath of snow behind her as she walks into a room where she must duck to avoid colliding with the cascade of books suspended from the ceiling, pages tumbling open in frozen waves. She reaches a hand out to brush over the paper, the entire room swaying gently as the motion passes from page to page. It takes her quite a while to locate another door, hidden in a shadowed corner, and she laughs when her boots sink into the powder-soft sand that fills the room beyond. Celia stands on a shimmering white desert with a sparkling night sky stretching in every direction. The sense of space is so vast that she must put her hand out in front of her to find the wall hidden in the stars, and it is still a surprise when her fingers hit the solid surface. She feels her way around the star-speckled walls, searching the perimeter for another way out. This is abhorrent, her father's voice says, though she cannot see him in the dim light. You are meant to be working separately, not in this debauched juxtaposition. I have warned you about collaborating. It is not the proper way to exhibit your skills. Celia sighs. I think it's quite clever, she says. What better way to compete than within the same tent? And you cannot rightfully call it a collaboration. How can I collaborate with someone whose identity I don't even know? She only catches a glimpse of his face as he glares at her, and then she turns away, returning her attention to the wall. Which is superior, then? She asks. A room full of trees, or a room filled with sand? Do you even know which ones are mine? This is getting tiring, Papa. My opponent clearly possesses comparable skills. How will you ever determine a winner? That is not your concern, her father's voice hisses, closer to her ear than she would like. You are a disappointment. I expected better from you. You need to do more. Doing more is exhausting, Celia protests. I can only control so much. It's not enough, her father says. When will it be enough? Celia asks. But there is no reply, and she stands alone amongst the stars. She sinks to the ground, picking up a handful of pearl-white sand and letting it fall slowly through her fingers. Alone, in his flat, Marco constructs tiny rooms from scraps of paper, hallways and doors crafted from pages of books and bits of blueprints, pieces of wallpaper and fragments of letters. He composes chambers that lead into others that Celia has created, stairs that wind around her halls, leaving spaces open for her to respond.